Hello and welcome to IBTimes TV. I'm Sally Turner, joined here in studio today with David Wolman, author of The End of Money. David, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, decisive title, The End of Money. Now, if this was to happen in society, do you think long-term that would be a positive thing?
Right. So the title, The End of Money, decisive indeed.
Yes.
And obviously, we're not at all talking about the end of money. We're talking about the end of money as most of us commonly understand it, the end of cash. Mm-hmm. And for a long time now, cash has been on the decline. And it's being sort of pushed to the margins of our everyday lives. You know, I imagine that you're not paying your health insurance or your rent or most restaurant checks with cash right now. Maybe some people are still using it for cash, but by and large, it's being pushed to the edge of this cliff. And a few years ago, I started to read about the costs of making pennies and nickels, which in the US right now costs more to make a penny than the value stamped onto the item. And same for a nickel, right, which is just crazy to a lot of people. It got me really curious about the costs of cash, the overall costs of cash, and the idea that cash might be nearing the edge of this cliff. So I wrote this short essay like, hey, you know, maybe we should get rid of it already. Movies, books, music, everything's going to the digital realm. What about cash already? The response was thundering and not very happy necessarily. All kinds of people really came out of the woodwork.
Who was sending those emails? What kind of groups do you think are opposing your book right now?
Okay, let's tick through some of the haters. We have fundamentalist Christians write me saying that I am handmaiden to the devil because as soon as we have no more anonymous means of transaction, that means the devil will have full control over the economy, and 30 hours later it's Armageddon. Then you have people who really think that the government should stay out of their business, and cash is a way to keep Big Brother, either a government Big Brother or the corporate version of Big Brother, out of their hair. Then I also hear from this other group of people who I think are the most fascinating. They're not extremists. They're everyday people who just say, I understand this rational argument against cash, but I don't know, there's just something about the physical. There's just something, and they all go like this, there's just something about the physical. In a way, it's like a lot of people who don't love ebooks. Right. They love that tactile experience of sitting down on the couch with a book that leaves their hands a little inky. And, I sympathize with that emotion. But with cash, it's even more so than the book situation. Again, because ever since you're a little kid, you have come to connect with and covet those objects. That $10 bill folded into a Hallmark card from Granny when you're for your 8th birthday, and the Tooth Fairy and all that kind of stuff. We are really programmed to love this.
But if you open a door to electronic money and cashless society does exist, do you really think crime would go down, or would it go up because it opens a whole new door of fraud and identity theft?
I think it would go down. I mean, first of all, financial crime exists and thrives in the digital realm today. No questions asked. But the category of criminals who you are either putting out of business or making business a lot tougher for are thugs and knuckleheads, right? So in the United States, we had 10,000 bank robberies over a 2-year period recently. That's just thugs chasing after pieces of paper, let alone the stick up at the local grocer or muggings on the street, right? That's all people who just want to grab some cash. So if you take away the cash, that incentive, there's no way that all of those goons have the tech-savvy ability to kind of pivot and say, oh, well, now I'm going to become a hacker and start hacking into digital accounts.
So it's like eliminating a type of criminal.
It's eliminating a type of criminal, right. and it's just making business harder for them.
There's a moment in your book where it becomes physical, and you talk about this moment of anxiety when thinking about all the germs on the money, the cocaine residue. Is that something personal, or is that something you think we should be worried about?
I don't think we should be worried about it, but I think there's a juxtaposition there that, if nothing else, is kind of enjoyable, if not a little weird, right? I mean, what other objects are there out there in the world that you're going to see in the gutter from across the street and swim your way over, get your hand down in the muck and not only take it out of the gutter, but then tuck it into your wallet, next to pictures of your children and your gym membership card, right? And it's like this proud sense of ownership over this thing that's filthy, covered in germs, cocaine residue, the rest of it. It will not be a vector for contagion, a la the latest, Hollywood thriller about a global contagion wiping out a third of humanity. Nothing like that. Never say never. It has actually. There's a fiction novel that I mentioned in the book that uses this as a plot line. That banknotes are a means to transmit this terrible disease. It's probably not going to happen. Or I would worry about something else first. And this may be eighth. But that being said, they are gross. During my year of trying to avoid cash and not even touch the stuff, certainly the germ phobe in me kind of became more and more exaggerated, and even my wife was like, enough already, I get it, I know it's gross, I'll wash my hands in a minute after paying the babysitter, but...
And speaking of that year where you did actually try and stay away from money, what were some of the main obstacles? Like, what was the hardest part of it?
Well, no question was when I flew to India to research the mobile money revolution that is underway in the developing world, where people are using their phone as a means to transact and as a means to access bank accounts. And yet, that's a rather futuristic discussion. When will we be completely using mobile tools for transaction? Because right now in India, if you're going to do anything outside of your hotel room, you need cash. To hire a taxi or pay a translator or buy some water on the street. So if I was actually going to do any reportage in India, I needed cash. So I pretty much reluctantly had to call a timeout on my year without cash.
Interesting. Now, you've gone all over the world and spoken to a number of many interesting people about what is cash, what is money. What has been the most interesting response you've got?
Aside from people who think that I'm in cahoots with Satan or a shill for the credit card companies?
One of the most interesting perceptions of money, like that you find fascinating, that you maybe not have thought of it before, like that.
I traveled to Iceland for one chapter of the book to explore sort of their banking crisis that they had over there and look at the fate of the krona through the lens of cash specifically, right? What would happen if Iceland dumped the krona and jumped on the euro? At the time, they were thinking about doing that. Even though now that sounds totally crazy, and they're like, whew, thank God we're not on the euro. At the time, they were. So I went over there to speak to the woman who designed the artwork for Iceland's banknotes. This heritage you can hold in your hand, is how she put it. And it was a very elegant way to describe how we feel about money. And I really thought I was teeing her up to say something like, cash, the currency notes are such an important part of our national identity, and we really shouldn't go on the euro, or it would be so tragic to jettison this history, or something touching about this, or something nostalgic about paper money. She was so fiercely practical about the whole thing. She was like, no, I use my credit card all the time. If we have to go on the euro and it makes more sense, we should go on the euro. And the French aren't any less French because they use the euro, is what she told me. Yeah. And so, there's something special about the greenback, sure. But I think that, once we stop making $100 bills, maybe collectors will enjoy them more because their value will just shoot up all of a sudden. So I don't think they'll be gone. We can have them in museums all over the country, for that matter.
If society were to go cashless, when do you think that would happen?
4 years? Of course not. 14 years? Probably not. After that, though, now we're into sort of the 24-year realm. I think you would be crazy to say with any confidence where we will be in terms of technology and technology's ability to provide solutions for us and to make the economy move more smoothly. Just look where we were 24 years ago when it comes to digital technology and digital tools. So, that's my sort of punt of an answer. It's a kind of punt, right? I do think that what's going to happen, though, is there is never going to be some deliberate government effort to end cash. As of June 1st, 2019, we will have nothing like that.
It'll phase out.
It'll phase out. It's going to be like pay phones. At a certain point, somebody, or maybe my son, when he's 25, is going to walk by one of those things in rural America and just think, what on earth is that thing? I mean, I think I saw that in a Superman movie once, but I have no idea what that's for. And I think cash will become something like that.
Well, thank you, David. Thanks for coming in today.
It's my pleasure.
Well, there you have it. The end of cash could happen sooner rather than later, and maybe in your lifetime. Thanks for watching. I'm Sally Turner for IBTimes TV.